Dr. Weiss here with the Beverly Hills Brain and Body Center. We're going to talk about the top 3 reasons the immune system can become compromised. Now this talk is going to refer specifically to 2 conditions, Lyme and chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, the first reason may seem a little obvious, but I really want to emphasize it. The infections themselves. So Lyme disease is fairly obviously, if you know a little bit about it, it's fairly obviously an infectious disease. Borrelia burgdorferi is the bacteria that causes Lyme disease, and it can create a number of multi-system problems. Now, in the medical literature, it is actually quite clear that chronic fatigue syndrome is started after somebody gets some sort of infection. Now, there can be a lot of overlap between Lyme and chronic fatigue syndrome, but I want to really emphasize here that if the infection is not cleared, then it's often very difficult to get the system back into a place where it's healthy. So that means that you could do all the work of replacing the proper nutrition, you could do all the work of restoring the mitochondria, you could do all the work of making sure that the lymphatic system is draining, you could do all the work of making sure that there's no toxic relations in someone's life, making sure that they're not carrying any old personal baggage that may be weighing down their immune system or their life in general, and still the infections may not go away. So again, emphasizing, it is often necessary to directly address these infections to really restore somebody back to health. It's a primary obstacle to healing, the infections themselves. Okay, number 2, toxins. We could go on for hours and hours about toxins, but I'm going to introduce you to 2 main types. Well, actually 3. There's heavy metals, we'll call environmental toxins. So these are things like pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, particulate matter that comes down from the air and that we breathe in from pollution, and even sometimes mold toxins that will be in your house. So this we can call biotoxin. So biotoxins, so these things can come from things like mold toxins, or even from the bugs that are living inside of us creating toxins. So these are often key things that need to be addressed in order to restore somebody's system back to health. And then the number 3 reason, and this is a biggie that often doesn't get talked about much less being addressed, unresolved personal baggage. This is a big deal. I'm going to give one example. I've had a couple of young men that have come into my practice in years past, and some of their primary symptoms having to do with Lyme disease was that they had pain in their genital regions, and they'd been worked up by a number of urologists, they'd been to physical therapy, they'd done their due diligence from the conventional medical standard and then some. And what we found out was that almost all of them had had a history of sexual abuse at some point. And so what I'm seeing clinically is that oftentimes toxins and infections will gather in parts of our body that resonate with this unresolved personal baggage. And it's actually quite clear in the medical literature that people that have adverse childhood events, meaning that they experienced some really traumatic event or they have gone through some sort of abuse, their immune systems are not as strong as everybody else's. And they tend to get damaged more easily, and they tend to have more autoimmune diseases. So unresolved personal baggage is a big thing. So clinically, what I can tell you is that when people do the work to resolve this baggage, oftentimes their immune systems will shift and they'll get back to health. I'm even going to give you a bonus, nutritional deficiencies. I said 3, but we're going for 4. All right, nutritional deficiencies. Now, big hint here. You can't rely solely on the lab testing to pick up your nutritional deficiencies. Why is this? Because our labs have a limitation, and that is, if we do a blood test, we can tell you how much copper, zinc, selenium, iron, all these normal trace minerals that we need for our body to function in the bloodstream. But what's in the bloodstream does not necessarily reflect what's going on in the brain or in the bones or in the liver or in the spleen or in the intestines. For example, there's research out there where they've looked at vitamin B12 levels in women with chronic fatigue syndrome, and it looked normal. They looked fine. However, if you did a spinal tap on these people and you looked at the vitamin B12 levels in their central nervous system, you'll find that they're almost completely depleted. So you can't rely solely on the levels in the blood tests to make sure that your nutrition levels are actually appropriate. Okay, so we went for the top 3 reasons the immune system becomes compromised, but we did 4. Talk to you soon.